All right, concussions in the NFL.
Arkansas State University,
Tyler Paschal.
Easton Key. For the introduction, we'll talk about the biological effect of the concussion and define what a concussion really is. We define the concussion as a traumatic brain injury that affects brain function. Symptoms include temporary loss of consciousness, headaches, confusion, amnesia, dizziness, and other symptoms.
Next, we're going to talk about the effects of the concussion in the NFL. So the lifespan of the NFL players, they tend to die 20 years earlier than the normal person. The effects of playing with concussions, so the effects they're going to have are they're going to have brain trauma, they're going to have memory loss, they're going to also have vision and hearing change, and they're going to experience fatigue. The next one, we're going to talk about the effects of retired players with history of the concussions, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, they're going to have brain trauma and brain damage, but they're also going to be taking medications for the rest of their life. They're going to have to go through therapy, and they're also going to be more prone to attempting suicide. So that's that slide. The next slide is the steps the NFL has taken for the player's safety. So first we got the proposed settlement of compensation. That's when the NFL ex-players agreed to $765 million in the concussion lawsuit. That's when they agreed to compensate victims and pay for their medical exams and expenses and underwrite the research. The next one we have transitioning program for retired players. That's when they helped former players learn about personal finance, launching new careers, developing a personal brand, helping them with communication skills, and of course the importance of health and well-being, especially for the concussion players. So the next one we have the new up-to-date on-the-field test that the NFL is implementing. So the most up-to-date and current NFL concussion test that I found is called the King-Devick test. It produces better results. It's faster, and the best thing about this concussion test is you can use it on the field, and instead of like having to take the player into the locker room and go through all that and bring them back out, you can just do it on the field. So there's that slide. The next slide is the NFL player interview. I was able to interview Don Jones. He is a former player at Arkansas State University. He now plays for the Miami Dolphins, and he is a defensive back. I asked him simple questions. I asked him, "Hey Don, have you ever had a concussion?" And he said the only concussion he's ever had was in 9th grade. So that eliminates him from having a concussion in the NFL. But I asked him about his teammates. What did you notice about them, the ones that had concussions? He said he just noticed like it affected them on and off the field, like it hindered their play, and that they just seemed to be in a different mood than they normally would be. I also asked him, do you think the NFL is doing anything about concussion safety for the players? And he told me from being in the NFL for the years that he has been, that the NFL is making strides. I mean, the coaches and the players even, and just like agents and people, the trainers, they just keep preaching like player safety, concussion safety, and they're bringing in the new concussion tests that also help with that. So that was the interview with Don Jones.
And for our discussion, concussions have become a big debate lately. I mean, you hear about it on SportsCenter and in the newspaper and the magazines like Sports Illustrated, and not just in sports, but in other aspects. You see it with the court cases where former NFL players have sued the NFL, like the settlement we talked about earlier that had to do with concussions, as well as debates of like the physicality of the game and how much more often these concussions are occurring and whether new rules should be implemented or rules should be changed to where these concussions don't occur as often. As I said, the NFL has progressively made steps to handle player safety year after year, including new rules, new tests, and new equipment. But too many rules can have a negative effect and can affect how the game is played. More rules can take away from the physical nature of the game and could quickly spiral to a game that resembles like flag football or touch football instead of a normal physical game of football, which is how the game is supposed to be played. And for our conclusion, player safety is important, but caution should be taken with new rules to keep the nature of the game as it is. Technology and tests are better than ever and is quickly becoming more relevant with player safety with new lab tests, new on-field tests, and different ways that they can treat and be aware of concussions and be able to treat them faster and get players back on the field. And finally, you can't stop a concussion from occurring, but you can lower the rate of them by implementing better rules, better equipment, better tests, and better awareness of the effects of concussions. There's our references. Thank you very much.
Thank you.